Hi, and welcome to another edition of Hacking Maths. Today we're going to look at completing the square. So let's jump right in. So here I have a quadratic, x squared minus 4x minus 12. Now, to the right of that I have the standard form of the completing the square, which is y equals x minus h all squared plus k. And by the end of this, we'll rewrite this equation, x squared minus 4x minus 12, in that form. Now, bear with me, it can be a little tricky, but you may need to watch this video a couple of times to understand what's happening. But I will try my best to explain it, and if you have any comments, please let me know. So, the first thing we need to do is, and the way I've done this is just actually put some brackets around. So I always really like to rewrite the equation out underneath, and we're going to put some parentheses around the first part here. In this form, where a is 1, the coefficient of x squared is 1, these parentheses are not particularly useful, but they will be when a is not 1, and we'll use that there. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to half this value here. So this 4 that we have, we need to half. So what we'll do is we're going to rewrite this as x, whoops, let's have a better pen. We're going to rewrite this as x minus 2, and what we're going to do is put that as all squared. And I know, straight away you're going like, how did he get that? Well, let's have a look at this. If we go across to the right-hand side here of the page, and we do x minus 2 all squared, and we multiply this out. So remember, we should always write down our x minus 2, and then we use our FOIL, and we basically go x times x is x squared, x times negative 2 is negative 2x, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 2 is plus 4. If we tidy this up, it gives me x squared minus 4x plus 4. So if you notice here, this x squared minus 2 part, if we notice that the x squared minus 4 is the same as the x squared minus 4 here. However, when we do x minus 2 all squared, there's a little extra bit. This plus 4 is extra, which we don't want. So we have to get rid of that little extra bit. Okay, so let me just go back and recap what we've done so far, just in case you've lost some of you along the way. So the first thing we did was we rewrote the equation and put parentheses around the x squared and the x term. We then said this number in front of the x, the 4, needs to be halved. And I wrote x minus 2 all squared. Now, we're not finished, but if we jump across to the right, we can say x minus 2 all squared. What is that actually equal to? And so if we multiply it out, we get x squared minus 4x, which is what we had in our red parentheses over here on the left, but we also have this plus 4. Now, we don't want that plus 4. So the easiest way to do that here is to write take away 4. So we now remove the 4 from this. Okay? And so that take away the 4, but we're not finished yet. There was a take away 12, so we have the take away 12. Okay? Then this gives me x minus 2 all squared, take away 16. And if you look, you will see that this form here, this one here, our final answer here we have, looks pretty much the same as what we had here. We have x minus 2 all squared minus 16, so we have x minus h all squared plus k. And the nice little side note is that we can find the vertex of this graph, that means the turning point, which is actually the coordinates 2, negative 16. And that's the vertex of the graph, or the coordinates of the turning point. Now, we're going to do another couple of these. We're not just going to stop at one, because the more we do, the easier it is going to be for you to understand what's going on here. Okay, so let's scroll up and let's start with a new one. Okay, so we're going to have y equals x squared minus, let's just do plus. Yeah, let's do plus 10x minus 6. Okay, so we're going to do that there. So the first thing we do is we write down our equation again, and we put inside parentheses the x squared plus 10x. Now remember what we did to the number in front of the x? Can you remember? We halved it. So what that means is we now write our parentheses x plus 5 all squared. Now we're not finished yet, we're almost there. Let's go across to the right hand side and multiply out our x plus 5 all squared. So we'll get our x plus 5 all squared, which is x plus 5 times x plus 5. Now that's x times x, which is x squared. Then we have x times 5, which is plus 5x. 5 times x, which is plus 5x, and 5 times 5 is plus 25. Tidy this all up, x squared plus 10x plus 25. Now we want to have the x squared plus 10x, so we want what's inside these nice red parentheses here, x squared plus 10x. Here's our x squared plus 10x, which we found, but there was the extra bit being the plus 25. So all we have to do is say, let's give it the red, and say subtract 25, but we can't forget about the subtract 6 that we had already, and this gives x plus 5 all squared minus 31. Okay, and that's our equation in its form there. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. Let's deal with it when the coefficient of x squared, that's the number in front of the x squared, is not 1. Okay, and we'll get into writing this here. So let's go up and do our next equation. So our next equation is going to be y equals 2x squared plus 12x minus 6. And what we're going to do here is, so we write our equation out again, so 2x squared plus 12x minus 6, and we put our parentheses around the first two terms. But you might notice something here. And what's really important about this is what's inside the parentheses must be x plus or minus something. But we've got an x squared, and we've got a number in front of that x squared. So we need to get that number outside. So this 2 that we have here must come outside. So we have 2 parentheses, then it'll be x squared plus 6x. So all we've done there is a little bit of factorization to get that bit out. Okay, and that equals. All right, and this still all equals the same. We haven't actually changed anything dramatically. This line is still the same as the last. All we've done is now taken out the 2 of what's coming from the x squared plus the 6x. Now, what we can do is this. We want to take what's inside the parentheses and write it as x plus or minus something and squared. Well, remember what we said? We take the number in front of the x. Whoops, it seems to like writing down to the bottom there. We take the number into the front of the x, and what we do is we half it. So that's x plus 3. So this gives me x plus 3 all squared. However, we've got to be careful. What we do here is we take the 2, so we take our 2 brackets x plus 3 all squared. And so now we multiply this out. Okay, so this should give me 2 parentheses x squared plus 3. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x plus 9. This gives me 2x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then what I like to do is just multiply this back out again, and we get 2x squared plus 12x plus 18. And if we go back to the very first place where we put our parentheses, and we put our parentheses here, and we saw our 2x plus 12, have we got 2x squared plus 12? Yes, we have. So what we need to do here is take our 2x squared plus 12, and we want to get rid of the extra bit, which is this plus 18. How do I get rid of a plus 18? I take away 18. So if we go back across here now, we can say take away 18, and then we've got our take away 6. Now, you'll start to find the more of these you do, this little working on the right-hand side, although it seems like a lot of extra work, you'll eventually get to a point where you don't have to do that, and you can just quickly figure out what it is you subtract. However, I really recommend you do this working on the right-hand side because it will make your life so much easier. If you try to do it without that, in the beginning, you're just going to basically cripple yourself and set yourself up for failure, and failure is not what we want. So let's do another example of completing the square. Okay, so this one here, it's all very easy. So this one here is y equals 5x squared minus 10x plus 2. So why don't you pause the video now, try it for yourself. I mean, maybe go back, watch the little bits before, try it for yourself, and then see if you actually can do it by watching afterwards. Okay, so pause it now. All right, so I guess you've tried it. Let's go through it ourselves. So we rewrite the equation again. That was the first thing that I like to do. We then put parentheses around the first two terms because these are the terms we really want to find. We notice that there is a 5 inside the parentheses, and we want to take that outside, so that becomes x squared minus 2x plus 2. Now, what you will find is in the harder questions, this number in front of the x will not divide nicely by the number in there, and you'll end up with a lot of fractions. Don't be worried, just take your time, work through it carefully with fractions, and you should be able to get there. All right? So we've got that part there. We can now write as 5, and we can go x minus, and remember we half the number, that is in front of the x, and that number is 2, so that becomes 1 squared. So let's take over to the right-hand side, 5x minus 1 squared. So we want to multiply this out, x minus 1 times x minus 1. So we have 5. And x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Negative 1 times x is negative x. And then negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Okay, we then tidy this up. 5 x squared minus 2x plus 1. We then multiply out the parentheses, so we get 5x squared minus 10x plus 5. Okay, so let's have a look and see. What do we have here? Well, what were we looking for in our red parentheses? We were looking for 5x squared. We were looking for 5x squared minus 10x. Did we find 5x squared minus 10x? Yes, we did. What was the extra bit? It was a plus 5. How do we get rid of a plus 5? Well, we subtract 5, and then remember we had a plus 2, so we've got plus 2 there. So we're almost done. 5x minus 1 squared minus 3. Okay, and that's how we change a quadratic and complete the square with it. However, that's not the only type of questions that we can be asked. Some questions we can be asked are to solve by completing the square. So let's do a few examples on solving by completing the square. Okay, so here's a nice question, and I may throw in a really nasty one with fractions, just so you can see how it's done. Okay, and I can give you a couple of hints there as well. So let's start with a nice easy one. We have, and we're going to solve by completing the square. Okay, so I'm going to solve by completing the square. Let's take this bit there, make it a little bit further down. Okay, so we have x squared plus 10x equals 6. Okay, so we want to solve this by completing the square. Notice we have an x squared and a number, very similar to what we had before. So we can think of this having parentheses around it, okay? So if we think of our parentheses around it, that then means we have to have x plus, and can you remember what's going to be there? That's right, we half the number that's in front. So we have x plus 5 squared, and then there's something going to be put here equal to 6. So what we need to do now is figure out what goes there. So we'll just go across to the side, x plus 5, because remember, x plus 5 all squared is x plus 5 times x plus 5. That gives me x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25. So it's x squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay? So, did we find what we were looking for inside our red parentheses? X squared plus 10x. We have x squared plus 10x plus an extra bit. How do we get rid of the extra bit? We subtract. So what we want to do here is subtract. Yes, we want to say subtract. Well, let's just make it a nice other color, red. So it stands out. We want to subtract 25. Okay, so we've now rewritten it. We've completed the square on the left-hand side. And now we can start to solve this. So we've got this negative 25. We remove a 25 by adding 25 to both sides. This then gives me x plus 5 all squared equals 31. Because negative 25 plus 25 is 0. 6 plus 25 is 31. Now we can take the square root of both sides. So we can say x plus 5 is equal to, I always like to write the square root like this first without putting the line across it until we've done there. Now remember, when we square root a number, we get a positive and a negative answer. So we can have plus minus, okay? And then lastly, all we've got to do is deal with this plus 5. How do I get rid of a plus 5? I subtract 5 from both sides. So this then gives me x equals negative 5 plus minus the square root of 31. Okay? And that's solved this equation by completing the square. So we get two answers for this. One answer is x equals negative 5 plus the square root of 31, or x equals negative 5 minus the square root of 31. So this is an alternative method than using the calculator method for solving a quadratic, but it does work and it gives us the answer. Okay, so even if this had said 0, equal to 0, so we can set that up and we'll try a question like that just now, even if it says equal to 0. Okay, so let's do another one of these. Okay, I'm going to do a few. So we have x squared minus 12x minus 3 equals 0. So we're going to do this one. I would suggest, can you complete the square first of all? So pause the video, try and complete the square, and then come back again. Okay, have you tried that? Right, let's go through it. So we have x squared minus 12x minus 3 equals 0. You know my penchant for writing the equation down. We write down inside the red brackets. Then we want x take away, and we want just a number. So half of 12 is 6. Okay, so that means on the right-hand side now, we do x minus 6 all squared. Now I'm just going to quickly jump to the answer here. So it's x squared minus 12x plus 36. You can work that out. We've done enough of these now for you to see. We look here and see, do we have what's inside our red parentheses, x squared minus 12x? We have our x squared minus 12x plus our little extra bit. How do we get rid of an extra bit? We subtract it. So we subtract 36. We then have subtract 3, and that equals 0. Okay, so we can tidy this up now. X minus 6 all squared minus 39 equals 0. Okay, then we can just start to rearrange. We've got minus 39. How do we get rid of a minus 39? Well, we add 39 to both sides. Okay, so that gives me x minus 6 all squared equals positive 39. Then we can square root both sides, so x minus 6 equals the square root of 39. Unfortunately, 39 is not going to have a nice square root, which is plus minus, because remember we get our two things there. We've got a negative 6. How do I get rid of a negative 6? Well, we add 6 to both sides, and that again gives me x equals 6 plus minus the square root of 39. And that's how we can solve one if it says equals to 0. So there's nothing really different. The two methods are pretty much the same. Let's go through and do one where it's a little bit more complicated. Okay, how about, let me see. Okay, so let's do this one here, and hopefully that I will do it right. So we have 3x squared minus 12x equals 2. And we want to solve this by completing the square. So we write our equation down, 3x squared minus 12x equals 2. And don't forget the parentheses. Now use the colors that I'm using, use highlighters to help you. It can make your life that little bit easier. Now remember, we've got a number in front of the x squared, so let's get that outside. So that's 3x squared minus 4x. Okay, and that equals 2. All right. Then we can have 3x minus 2 all squared. All right. And we're going to have to put something in here, and that's going to be equal to 2. So let's work out what our something is. We take our 3x minus 2 all squared, 3x minus 2, x minus 2, which will become 3x squared minus 4x plus 4. Multiply that out. 3x squared minus, not 4, that's a slip there, should be 12x plus 12. So we have a look at this. Do we have our 3x squared minus 12? 3x squared minus 12, and we have an extra bit. So we have a plus 12. So what we have to do is get rid of our plus 12. So we subtract 12. Okay, now we can work with this. Okay, so what do we have to do here? Well, we have to add 12 to both sides, so that gives me 3x minus 2 squared equals, I was going to say 24, but it's 14. 14, because we add 12 to both sides. We've got this 3 on the front now, so before I can square root, I have to get rid of the 3. So that becomes x minus 2 all squared equals 14 all over 3. As you can see, it's not very nice. However, we can still work with it. X minus 2 equals plus minus the square root of 14 all over 3. And then we want to get rid of this minus 2, so x equals 2 plus minus the square root of 14 all over 3. And now that was because that was a negative 2 there. We add 2 to both sides to get that. And there is our answer. So not particularly nice, not particularly friendly. However, it does actually work. Okay? All right. Let's, should we got time for one more, I think? I wonder. I think we could do one more. What one shall we do? Let's see, let me think. All right. I think we'll do a bit of a nasty one. And just sort of go with that and see how it works out. All right? And I'll show you how we could do this. So let's do one if it was a bit nasty. All right, so let's just start with a slightly easier one, but it's a little nasty. It's 3x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so we can, this is our equation here. And why do I say this is nasty? I'm saying it's nasty because this number here is odd. And odd does not divide nicely. Doesn't play well with others in that regard. Okay, so let's follow our procedure that we've done so far. We write out our equation again, and this time we make sure we put our parentheses there. Okay, we then x minus, and we've got 3 and we half it, so that'll be 3 all over 2 all squared, and something's going to go here, take away 1 equals 0. Now, in this case, actually, even if this didn't say equals 0, this could be y equals y, and we could just factor, we could work it all the way down until the bottom and just leave it equal to y. However, we've got this equal to 0. Let's continue through. So that means then I need to take my x, well, let's just do this in the right colors. I was using green, so let's use green. x minus 3 all over 2 squared. Okay. Becomes x minus 3 over 2, x minus 3 over 2. X times x squared. X times negative 3 over 2, negative 3 over 2, x. Then negative 3 over 2 times x is negative 3 all over 2. And negative 3 over 2 times negative 3 over 2 is plus 9 over 4. Okay, remember, multiply the fractions. When you multiply a fraction together, you multiply the numerators and you multiply the denominators. Okay, then lastly, we can tie this up because x squared minus, I'll do it in one extra step, minus 6x all over 2 plus 9 over 4. So that's x squared minus 3x plus 9 all over 4. Okay? So remember, when we add fractions together, we only add the numerators, and they must have the same denominator when we add them. So let's have a look and see, did we get our x squared minus 3x? There's our x squared minus 3x. There's our x squared minus 3x. And there's our little extra bit. Our little extra bit is our plus 9 over 4. So we want to get rid of a plus 9 over 4. We subtract 9 over 4. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at this here and going, oh my God, I gotta do subtractions with fractions. I hate subtractions with fractions. Well, it's very easy, because all we're going to do is we're going to change this 1. We're going to write it as something over 4. And what over 4 is equal to 1? It's 1. It's 4. So 4 over 4 is equal to 1. So x minus 3 over 2 minus our 9 over 4 minus 4 over 4, because 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. So that's how we can do that. Just makes it a little bit easier. Prefer to do it that way. It makes it, in my mind, just a little bit simpler. So we have x minus 3 all over 2 squared. Then we do minus 9 minus 4, because we take the numerators. So minus 9 minus 4 all over 4 equals 0. So we'll just do a few extra steps, because it's a little bit more complicated, so you can see where everything's coming from. Squared. And then what we have is minus 13 all over 4 is equal to 0. We want to solve this, so we're going to add 13 over 4 to both sides. So we remove the 13 over 4 on the left-hand side. Okay, so it removes that there. Then what we want to do is, because there's no number in front, we're going to square root. So x minus 3 all over 2 equals the positive or negative square root of 13 all over 4. And then we add 3 over 2 to both sides. So x equals 3 over 2 plus minus the square root of 13 all over 4. And I wrote that square root sign wrong. I will just rewrite that correctly. There we go. Now, what's actually quite nice about square root signs is that if you square root a fraction, you're basically square rooting the top and square rooting the bottom. So we could rewrite it like this. And what is the square root of 4? Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So this gives me 3 plus or minus, so 3 over 2 plus or minus root 13 all over 2. So notice now, here in my last line compared to this line here, compared to this line, the square root sign is encompassing the whole fraction. And here, in this part, it's only on the numerator, okay? Because the numerator is the only thing being square rooted, because we square rooted the denominator, because we could do that. And this allows us to do one final little step, which may impress whoever it is you're looking at. So that's there, and that takes that to there. Now, I know this has been quite a long video, and there's been lots of things in it. So what I would suggest is go back, try the things before you actually try things again, watch the video again, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And that's all we've got time for on this episode of Hacking Maths. So I'll hopefully see you again.